Michael Cohen has been testifying before the House of Representatives, and this testimony has been happening all day long, but we're gonna give you the most relevant parts of it. Now, it began with Michael Cohen's statement, but more importantly, some of the issues that he's decided to shine a light on, which could lead to legal ramifications for Donald Trump. Now, additional information, more information than we already knew. So first, let's start off with the hush money payments. This is not about Russia. This is about the hush money payments that were given to women like Stormy Daniels, for instance, to basically refrain from sharing information about their affairs with the public. Now, here is the first part of Cohen's testimony on that.
Back in 2017, when, actually I apologize, in 2016, prior to the election, I was contacted by Keith Davidson, who is the attorney, or was the attorney for Miss Clifford, for Stormy Daniels. And after several rounds of conversations with him about purchasing her life rights for $130,000, what I did each and every time is go straight into Mr. Trump's office and discuss the issue with him. When it was ultimately determined, and this was days before the election, that Mr. Trump was going to pay the $130,000. In the office with me was Alan Weisselberg, the chief financial officer of the Trump organization. He acknowledged to Alan that he was going to pay the $130,000 and that Alan and I should go back to his office and figure out how to do it. So yes, sir, I stand by the statement that I gave, but there was a history to it.
So this is all about the reimbursement, because remember, Michael Cohen paid that $130,000 to Stormy Daniels up front, and then this conversation is all about how the Trump camp is going to reimburse Michael Cohen for that money.
So let me break it down this way. John Iadarola and I had this conversation as we were covering the hearings live. And by the way, anytime there's a major political event like this, you should always check out our play-by-play at tyt.com/live. Okay, so there's three main components to how you should think about the different criminal cases that are potential against Donald Trump. One is collusion with the Russians before the election, so that would involve the crime of conspiracy and possible campaign finance violations, etc. Then there is, I actually am the most skeptical about that part. So we'll talk about it at length in a little bit. Then there is collusion with the Russians after the elections, which I think is far more likely. I'm afraid that Mueller might not have investigated that as thoroughly as he needs to. But then there is a third category. And look, the second category after the election, if Trump is really taking notes from the Russians on what to do with our foreign policy, is absolutely explosive. That would be the worst of the worst, and I believe that is what happened. But again, put that aside for now. The third category is other crimes, not having to do with collusion with the Russians at all, okay? And there's a huge list, laundry list there. But the most important one is the one we're talking about here, the hush money, or as Rashida Tlaib called it later in her part of the hearings, bribe money. Because that is, it's just to bribe her to not talk about their affair because it was days before the election and they didn't want it to affect the election. Now, the reason why that's the most important is because that is the one we have the clearest evidence on. At this point, with this testimony that you're watching, I know it sounds bold to say, but it really isn't bold. It's an open and shut case.
It is an open and shut case, and there is evidence beyond what Cohen is saying to prove that this is an open and shut case. And so we're gonna provide that evidence for you in just a minute. Now, Representative Cummings was part of the questioning when it came to this issue. And so what you're about to see is the evidence that Michael Cohen had provided to show that he had been reimbursed for that hush money and how he had been reimbursed. So let's take a look at the video that explains all of that.
Can you tell me who signed this check?
I believe that the top signature is Donald Trump Jr. And the bottom signature, I believe, is Alan Weisselberg's.
And can you tell me the date of that check?
March 17th of 2017.
Now, wait a minute, hold up. The date on the check is after President Trump held his big press conference claiming that he gave up control of his businesses. How could the president have arranged for you to get this check if he was supposedly playing no role in his business?
Because the payments were designed to be paid over the course of 12 months, and it was declared to be a retainer for services that would be provided for the year.
Okay, that was one of my favorite parts of the whole day when Representative Elijah Cummings was like, wait, hold up now, hold up. Okay, save a seat for me. Okay.
That was a good moment. That was a good moment.
So why is this important? It's because Michael Cohen's got receipts, literal, in this case, check, clear, documented evidence that backs up what he's saying. We already have his testimony saying, yes, I paid that bribe to make sure that Stormy Daniels did not talk before the election. It was definitely about the election. I gave the $130,000. So that is a violation on several grounds. One is someone giving above $5,400 is an in-kind contribution that is clearly illegal. That's Michael Cohen contributing to Donald Trump's campaign way above what is legally allowed. Then Donald Trump confirms that by paying him back. And you have all of these checks while he's president. And on top of that, the guy that his name was mentioned throughout the hearings, but that the press overall is not talking enough about, and that's Alan Weisselberg. Okay, so that's Trump's money man in the Trump organization. He signs all the checks. He knows where, what comes in, what goes out. He has all the information, and he is cooperating with prosecutors. So the Trump team, here's what I have to say to you. Weisselberg, straight ahead, okay? So you're about to run into that Weisselberg, and that is 3 different things that confirm Michael Cohen's side of the story. Clearly illegal and clearly provable.
So, but there's more.
There's more.
As you can tell from that last clip that we showed you, Elijah Cummings showed the check that was signed by Trump's son. But what you're about to see has Trump's fingerprints all over it. Donald Trump's fingerprints all over it. Take a look.
Now here's another one. This one appears to be signed by Donald Trump himself. Is that his signature?
That is Donald Trump's signature.
So let me make sure I understand. Donald Trump wrote you a check out of his personal account while he was serving as president of the United States of America to reimburse you for hush money payments to Ms. Clifford. Is that what you are telling the American people today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Wait up, hold on.
That's pretty big.
Okay, so more consequences from this. The first check is signed by Donald Trump Jr. SpaghettiOs, that means his son's on the hook, okay? So now remember my theory as to why Donald Trump's gonna resign eventually. Because not only are they gonna have overwhelming evidence on him, but they're going to have overwhelming evidence on some of his kids. And here we go, Junior's now clearly on the hook. Then the second check is signed by Trump himself. So they're both totally on the hook. And later Ro Khanna, and we'll show you that in its entirety later in the program, shows why this would also be criminal fraud by the Trump organization to be putting together checks and giving it to Michael Cohen under false pretenses, because they said it was for legal services, and Michael Cohen made very clear that it was not for legal services. It was for the hush money. So it's illegal on 2 different counts.
Donald Trump, in reference to Michael Cohen cooperating with the authorities, referred to Cohen as a rat. And that's relevant because why would you refer to someone as a rat unless they're outing you to the feds or they're outing you to the authorities? They're giving the cops the information about you and your mob, right?
So Anna, you read my mind/tweets.
No, actually, I didn't read your tweets.
I'm kidding.
Stay away from Twitter.
Earlier today, I tweeted, the whole day reminded me of a capo testifying against the mafia boss. And similar language was used, similar talk of conspiracies, etc. And guys, if you didn't do anything wrong, okay, they accuse you of something random and somebody gives false testimony against you, first of all, you'd be perplexed. You'd be like, what? We did not rob that bank? What on God's green earth are you talking about? But you wouldn't call the guy a rat.
Right.
Because that implies you did do it and he ratted you out.
God, Trump is so stupid.
He is, he's monumentally stupid. And that was another part of my thesis as to why he's not gonna make it, because he's too stupid to cover things up.
Before we continue on with some of the other potential consequences of this testimony for Trump, I just wanna make clear that overall, it was very obvious that Republicans do not care about the crimes that he's committed, the potential crimes he's committed. Republicans have no interest in holding Donald Trump accountable. And so in order for your prediction to come to fruition, you would need a Republican Party that does not consist of brown shirts. And right now we have a Republican Party that consists almost solely of brown shirts, who will support Trump, who will back Trump, even at the expense of our democracy, at the expense of the American people. I mean, they had absolutely no interest in holding Trump accountable. And you're gonna see that as we show you more and more clips.
I hear you. One tiny footnote to that is, I watched all the testimony all together with you guys the whole day, right, as we covered it. And Justin Amash is this, he voted with them, very classic Republican move, okay? And he's eccentric, he's different. He is more right-wing in a lot of cases than the rest of the Republicans, but sometimes shows flashes of principle. And he did not play the same political games as the rest of the Republicans. He actually asked interesting, different questions, and I was really surprised by it. So, but Amash is
he gonna save us? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's fair, Anna. And, and even if he were to do the right thing, it's only one guy. And you could pull in Walter Jones, who's another huge right winger, but has principles. Maybe you can cobble together a couple of honest Republicans, but that ain't gonna do the job, right? And we don't need him in the House, we need him in the Senate. But overall, no, at the end of the day, the Republicans would have to decide the political damage done to their career by supporting Donald Trump would be greater than the political damage done by not supporting Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's what would drive them, right?
Yeah.
Their own personal gain or their own personal
100%.
loss, that's what would drive them, not the best interests of their constituents or the American people or our justice system. They don't care about that at all. They're not leaders, they're not interested in actually representing the people who voted them into office. All they care about is their own political careers, and that's pretty damn pathetic.
Yeah, so last point on that issue is that, guys, we show you the clear illegal actions of Donald Trump. Even his own lawyers today came out and said, well, even if all of that is true, you can't indict a sitting president. Now think about what a terrible defense that is.
Jeez.
Like, yeah, my client might be a criminal, but you're not allowed to indict him because he's a sitting president. I mean, if they're resorting to that is horrific. But all this stuff is already plain and obvious and in the public record. This goes to Anna's point, and the Republicans still have not backed away from him. Don't get me wrong, the criminality is not something that's going to dissuade Republicans from supporting someone. They've supported plenty of criminals, right? No, it's if the American people become convinced that the evidence is irrefutable, and then independents leave him completely, and some portion of Republicans go, a bridge too far, cannot take it. Now, Anna, you could be fairly skeptical about whether that would ever happen with the Republican voters.
Beyond skeptical.
And that would have to happen either with the Republican voters or all the Republican donors for the Republican politicians to go, all right, eject, right? But that is where we're headed here because this illegality is irrefutable. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.